All right. Okay, so are you on day 4 of the very low calorie protocol?
Yeah, day 4, but it's kind of almost like day 2 because I should have loaded towards the end of our vacation because we didn't really buy groceries because we weren't there that long. We were just going to throw everything out, and so it was kind of hard to find places. There is a tiny little town, and so it wasn't. I didn't eat a lot.
Yeah, and you got to work it. Loading takes work. You have to be prepared. You have to have all that food. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I loaded fine. Well, I loaded fine. It was just there was 2 days of where I was supposed to be on the very low calorie diet.
I see what you're saying. And
so I didn't eat a lot, but it probably wasn't the exact things on the list, and so.
Yeah.
So, but now I'm back home and I can do it. I can do it right.
Okay, we'll call this day 2. We'll call this day 2 of the very low calorie protocol. Good. Good.
And I mean, I know I go back and forth like I'm like such a crazy person in my head. I'm like, okay, I know like I have to get at least some weight off before I can like function, because like I need like some of my clothes to fit. Like that's the hugest issue for me. But then you go back and forth of like, that's my problem. I've always wanted my cake and eat it too. I want to like be able to not eat chicken and vegetables, and to still but not be fat, and I know that there is a way to do that, and
well, you have to accept whatever limitations it takes to do that.
Right.
You just have to accept it. Because if you're not going to be lenient on the body image side of it, you really have to accept the sacrifice it's going to take. There's benefit to that. There is. Because you'll no longer feel victimized by your restrictions because it's a conscious choice that you're making that is worth it versus, the holding. Yeah. Like, well, that comes, but that comes from when you think I should be able to eat all these foods and stay thin. Well, now you're putting yourself into a position to be pissed off because your expectations are wrong. So if we can get you to lower your expectations on the food side, there is a place where you could potentially balance this. You just have to truly accept, I will never be able to eat these or go to this place or be in these situations because they completely conflict with what it takes for me to stay thin.
Right. That's totally head on.
Yeah.
You're right on the button.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, so there's more than one side that we can adjust. For me, the route I go is adjust the body image side because then you can be a normal person. But for people who struggle with that, then we have to adjust your expectations on the food side. And you have to be realistic about it to yourself and be okay with those sacrifices. Again, if you can find that balance, it's going to be hard because you're human and there's human nature that you can't change.
Right.
But you won't at least feel like a victim.
Right, which I think is what I've always done before, and then that's what would lead me to the guilt. Like when I was, I knew I was supposed to be on this very low calorie protocol, and I ate half a patty melt, but I only ate half of it because I was full, and I didn't even eat the other half when I got home, But I didn't feel bad. I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't beat myself up about it. I wasn't perfect, so I guess that was kind of good.
Well, that is. I would agree with you. Again, it's like, well, obviously there's dysfunction involved, but the fact that you don't feel that you're a failure or ruined everything is a actual improvement.
Right.
That's an important aspect of recovery is to give yourself the grace to be realistic, and so once you so that realisticness around your food consumption, once you're realistic with that, then you're also going to have to look at what's realistic with your body image, because if what's realistic for you in terms of what you want to do with food does not equate to that thinner body, then you're going to have to look at that.
Right, which I think I definitely, that's why I don't have this, 120-pound vision in my head anymore. Like, I just want to be able to fit in my clothes. Like, I don't even care. I really, was thinking about this morning. I don't even care what other people think. I just, as I'm ironing this, bigger shirt, I'm like, I have, all these, work clothes. I just want to fit back in them. And that's not, that would take probably 15 pounds. That's not, an insane, 15 pounds.
So you would just have to, where I would guide you to is to be consciously aware. If it requires more restriction than you really want to enforce on yourself, you're going to have to look at that size of clothing. Because the last thing we want you to do is go into being a victim, because that's where your overeating is going to exist. Does that make sense?
Right.
I know that's your goal. That's what I want, Robin. I want to just fit into these right here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to fit into those clothes. My goal is to say, okay, that's fine.
Right.
You have to be, if you find a way of eating and it's restrictive, but it's not insane, right? It's manageable. There's lenience in it. It gives you the grace of having a cocktail, having a piece of bread, those basic fundamental human needs. And it doesn't fit. That's where you have to reassess both sides. You have to go, okay, I have to look at not just my body image, but I got to look at what I'm doing. Which one needs to be adjusted, and can I adjust them both slightly?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
And I totally realize I think I've been unrealistic for so many years, just wishing, poor me, why can't I be, why am I 5 feet tall? Okay, well,
there's nothing you can do about it. Exactly. So you get over it. Yeah.
And why do I have this muscular body? I don't want to be, I want to be long and lean. Maybe I should do Pilates.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to work for me because that's how I'm built.
Yeah, you have to go into acceptance is the key word here. You have to at some point go into an acceptance. Again, there is this balance. For most of the people I work with, it's all or freaking nothing, right? All or nothing. And their symptoms are horrible. They're not only depressed, but they have suicidal tendencies. They're miserable, and we got to get rid of the entire body image completely. Overhaul. Shut it down, black it out, right? In your case, it's not an option. You're not there. So how can I assist you when you want to keep that? So the best thing we can do is say, okay, get lenient around that weight. We're not blacking it out. Get lenient. And then we got to look at your restrictions because, okay, you're going to do this very low-calorie protocol, right?
Well, see, that's the question I had for you. It's kind of okay, so I have 15, 20 pounds.
Okay, so I just want to pause, hold on. On a side note, I would never recommend the protocol for you. If you came to my clinic, I'd say you need a head doctor. You need to go get a specialist. You're anorexic, not a good thing. But you're doing it on your own, and I'm just assisting, right? I'm assisting in this other aspect. So I want to make sure that you're aware that I would never, ever recommend it for you. A doctor who prescribes HCG for someone that needs to lose 15 pounds should lose his license.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just making sure that's aware. Okay.
So and I'm totally okay with, I trust your opinion, and because I was kind of okay, I'm so freaking sick of chicken and vegetables. It's making me eat chicken, and I'm I'd rather just not even eat.
I get it. But here's the thing. There's a reason why, in terms of your recovery, knowing that that's what you're going to do, why I would support you.
Right.
Because it's your...
I know
you need your...
I need to restrict.
Yeah.
I know I need to... I know I need to get this little bit of weight off.
Yeah, so to me, it's now we're using the protocol, or you're going on the protocol, and I'm seeing this as a benefit to you in the whole picture. Like, I could see this. I know what's going to happen. She needs to go through this. This is going to benefit her.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
If for some reason I can't follow it, like, to a T, and it's going to mess me up more if I were to, like, you know, have a few cheeses or something, then should I just go about losing it in a different way that may be slower, but healthier, I guess, or so to speak.
So again, that is a great idea if you are capable of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lost, if not like I've only lost weight in my entire life on this protocol.
I know that. But remember when you came off the protocol and you decided you were going to do ketogenic, and then you're like, I have to do something drastic. And that was the last time we talked. And I was like, yeah, I know. So I got to be severely controlled to figure this out. So open your mind to just observe the patterns and because everything you're saying is idealistic if you didn't have these issues. Right? It's like in a world where I was rational and I didn't have impulsivity and I wasn't obsessive compulsive and I don't have this extreme collectingness, right? It would work out like that.
Yeah.
And you may have in the past not have been as frantic, may not have been as like inflamed, if you want to call it that. You may not in the past have been as extreme about it. And that's usually when people are more lenient, more gracious, they don't have the same impulsivities. This is where I believe the Hcg protocol is absolutely dangerous, because it can create this insanity for people who are prone to it, right? It's like the perfect environment for someone with disordered eating to end up with an eating disorder. Okay. And you're living it, and I'm witnessing it from the outside going, yeah, this is what's going on. It becomes like bulimic. The protocol becomes like a purge for people who are in the presence of, I have to lose it now. Not I got to lose it later. It's, I got to lose it now. Like, it's super intense. It's like, and so you're kind of in that position, and it would, if you can get yourself to go, it doesn't have to happen now. It doesn't have to happen in a year. So what that might do is get you to relax. Just relax. Right?
And I think, like, you know, I go back and forth, you know, and I think once I get on it, and then I'm like, God, this sucks, you know.
Well, but when you're not on it, let's keep in mind you're fantasizing about what it is. That's what it's going to be like, and you get on it, and reality sets in. No,
it's like, God,
my fantasy's wrong. It's wrong. You know, you assume, don't you agree? You assume, well, it will, because I will be feeling thinner and I will be losing weight, it will be worth it, because I won't have to feel this horribleness that I just can't feel. It's horrible. I hate it. I'd rather be on a starvation protocol. Right?
Right. And then once you get on it, you're like, well,
being fat's not that big of a deal. I can totally.
It doesn't need to happen like instantly, and that's not necessarily even the healthiest way, because it doesn't really stay off, you know.
Well, it's not going to with this type of extremism, right? Like it's a pendulum swing going from one super far right side to a super far left side. And how do you get it to not keep on swinging that high when it's being thrown and heaved back and forth? Yeah, it's hard. This is hard. I'm
honestly willing to not do the protocol. I mean, I don't feel as emergent.
Yeah, right now, what I want you to go into within yourself is what's realistic. I know what you're feeling right now, which is restricted and pissed off about it, and like, this is sucky. I get that. See the pattern. I want you to witness it rather than have to control it. Just witness what's going on.
Yeah, I totally I totally witnessed it. I didn't think that I would. I didn't think it's kind of like what you're saying with the first time doing the protocol. It works really great, and then the other times because then you're not like.
You didn't emotionalize it the first time. It was an experiment. It was like, I'm not getting involved because this might not work. It's an experiment. So you're detached emotionally from the first round. So you're actually allowing the process to occur and giving it an honorable effort because you're curious. There's a curiosity about if this works. You know, how did you read Dr. Simeons' Pounds and Inches?
Parts of it.
Yeah, fascinating. So there's a curiosity around, wow, this is really actually can make some sense, and there's some science, and so the curiosity and the fact that there's skepticism is why the first rounds are so successful. At least from all of my observations, that's what I've concluded. I could be wrong. There's got to be research to actually validate that, but the fact that you're not attaching all this emotional baggage to it is why it works and why it's not so impulsive and why you're more relaxed about it and a witness to it. Once someone interjects their emotional baggage, meaning I want to hit that number, I could be thinner, and then they start getting all that delusions of grandeur, right? The pride and look at me, I'm so thin. They're hitting these weights that or a size that, you know, with other alternatives is like freaking impossible. So all of a sudden the ego gets inflamed. The narcissistic core of the ego gets sucked into this and the pride of it. Once that happens, it becomes extremely, your focus goes from distant to myopic. It's really close in your face and you kind of you become obsessive about the scale. And you become you become also the other side of that is really lenient on the actual protocol restraints because you're now approaching it as if it's a diet, not a medical procedure or hormonal therapy. Right. So you give yours and we start to use those. Well, I can eat that and then tomorrow I'll be perfect. Oh, I'll just do an apple day. So it's kind of begins this where this is you can't do that. It's there's a reason why it's called a protocol, not a diet or even a restriction. Right. It's a protocol. You're pumping in a level of Hcg that has been shown in laboratory investigation with uteruses or placentas that promotes the most explosive amount of leptin. And leptin is a hormone that is extremely amazing in that it not only allows your body to fuel, but it also allows your body to basically metastasize its fat. So you get more fat cells and proliferating fat cells. The more you have. Right. So you're fucking with that.
Yeah, that's
on top of the inflammation that you already have because of your eating disorder. So it's like you're taking HCG on top of this raging brain that's inflamed.
So probably not the best idea.
No, but at the same time, it's the solution that you want. So this is where you have to look at emotionally. It's the only thing that really gets me going. Like it's your crack cocaine.
Well, I thought
it's your meth.
That's what I thought, and then now I'm like, well,
I want my food. This is too restrictive, too disconnected from people. Is it really worth it? So remember when I said to you, you're kind of flip-flopping between I'm a victim to the body, I can't do this, this is horrible. I'm a victim to what it's doing to my life and how I feel about it. To I'm a victim of what I got to do to fix it. Notice when you're in one position, the rescuer like when you're feeling shitty about your weight or about the potential of weight gain, that the diet seems so appealing, so realistic, and so amazing.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, when you're in the restriction, your primal animal stuff starts to come out and you start to be obsessive about you think about food all the time. So you are probably in that position where you're constantly thinking about food and what you can't have and what you want and what's there. The mouth is watering with everything that you can't eat. And then when you do eat the food you eat, you're going into this probably a position of feeling sorry for yourself because it's so bland. What that tells me is the end result you're looking for is super frail. It's fragile. It's not very profound. It's very superficially oriented. That tells me that your goal isn't about the body. It's about your emotional desires for what it can give you, right? When someone is, let's just say, using this protocol because it could potentially reverse their polycystic ovarian syndrome, they're going to be a little different. Don't you agree? How they approach the blandness of the food for that temporary period of time. Yeah. You don't really have any physical problems. It's all distortion in your head. It's called cognitive distortion. You catastrophized your weight and the size of those clothes. It's catastrophe. This is where so many people think, oh, she's not overweight. She doesn't know. She has no idea how bad this is. Yeah, she does. It's a psychological problem. In fact, you could say if you were just bigger, it wouldn't be this bad. But you're trying to maintain a lower weight, which makes it almost worse because you're paranoid. The paranoia, the defensiveness, it's like you have to hide. It's sketchy, right? And so this is where it's miserable. It's miserable. So how do we work within what you're willing to do? Well, the best thing I can suggest for you is to, as much as you can, you need to be truthful with yourself. Stop believing your fantasies because you keep on thinking, I'll just do something lenient. And you're like, you couldn't do that. Because you're coming off of this kind of animalistic, you're in an animal state of hoarding with food. You're shoving it in your face because you're aware, I cannot eat it. It's going to go away, So one of the things that you might want to consider is you could go off the protocol because the protocol, if you can already tell you're only 2 days in that you're starting to get, which I'm not surprised, right? I knew this was going to happen, but you needed to experience it again. You had to go through this again to go, okay, here we are again. It's not what I thought.
Yeah, you're right. You're so smart.
No, I'm just practiced. This is, you're not the first rodeo, dearie, but it is for you. It is for you. And I understand that. And so that's why I'm giving you all this grace, because this is your first rodeo trying to fix this. You've never thought that this needed to be fixed in your life until recently.
Right. Or I never went to any extreme to try to fix,
Yeah. So I'm in it with you. I want to guide you in a way that is going to stop this. What could happen again is exactly what we just went through. The last 5 sessions. Right?
Right.
Let's learn, because you and I were here on our first session. This is where you were.
Yeah.
You're back.
Exactly.
You're back.
Right.
Something.
It's a total pattern.
It is. Can you see that this is what happens? This is the pattern. This is it. I can't handle my body. I get that kind of like, I'm going to crawl out of my skin. It feels like the worst thing on the planet. It really literally feels that way. It feels like you're going to die. Actually, if you didn't do anything about it, you would end up feeling like it was going to kill you. You didn't allow that process to happen, so it didn't necessarily occur. But if you did nothing, that's what would have occurred. That's what's underneath this, is this weird sense of it's going to kill me. Even though that sounds irrational, it doesn't sound logical. That's the emotions that are underneath that are bubbling up. That's why it's so impulsive to get back on the diet.
Right.
It's that intense. That's why it's like, now I have to do something now. It is so animalistic. It's so survival oriented. It's amazing when you really take a step back and witness it. That's freaking amazing. No wonder the human species has survived as long as we've survived. That mechanism serves a purpose. When there's a bear in front of you, when, there's a fire and you need to get out, it's just for some reason attached to body fat.
And I think part of me, it's like when I used to take the fen-phen, or Centramine. Like, I think part of me was like, oh, well, the HCG, then I won't be hungry. Like, I think I'm afraid, like, oh, if I don't have that, then I'm going to be hungry and then I'm going to eat everything.
Yeah, and that's what... Go ahead. I want to see if you kind of connect the dots and why.
In reality, like, I don't think that I'm hungry that much, normally without HCG or Centramine.
You're probably not.
I eat for other reasons,
Yeah, well, you're eating to compensate for feeling so deprived. And the other thing is you eat out of shame and guilt. I shouldn't be eating that. I shouldn't be eating that. And that all of a sudden it's going in your mouth. Yeah. That has a lot to do with the dieting.
I thought, I'm eating because I'm hungry all the time. Damn, I need medicine. But not really, because like you said, I have enough fat cells to live on for quite some time on a desert island. I tell my friend, I'm like, we were on a desert island way longer than you.
The funny thing is, it's really not that much longer. In your mind, however, it's like, you might as well be 200 pounds.
What was that?
I said, in your mind, you're really not that much bigger. It's just, to you, it's been catastrophized. So it feels to you like 200 pounds, that you'll live as long as someone who's morbidly obese. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how distorted it is in your mind.
Or I guess comparing myself to someone who's, 110 pounds, I'm like, shoot,
Well, in your mind, it's massive. It's not, in reality, it's not. You really might live a couple more weeks longer. You're not 200 pounds. In your head, it's been catastrophized, which is why you have this response.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, so what we've got to get you to do is step out and look at this pattern and look at where it starts. Clearly none of this impulsiveness would happen if you didn't have that kind of raging insanity around fatness. And that's why you do everything you're doing. That's why you gravitate to all those restrictions and the fen-phen and the phentermine and the HCG and the paleo and the intermittent fasting and the keto. And all of that serves the purpose to hide and get rid of those feelings you don't want with being overweight. Right? You wouldn't be held hostage to doing all of this crazy shit if you didn't feel so bad about being overweight.
Right.
So just see that clearly. I'm not telling you to change anything. I'm just like, let's open this up and put some air into it and spread it out so you can see the actual core of the problem. It isn't the food. The food is consequential, right? Because you're doing something so radical like the HCG diet.
Right.
You're doing something as radical as keto. It's radical. That's radical. Intermittent fasting, radical. Yeah. All of it is just, it's like radicalism.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to gravitate to those things because you feel that bad about your weight or that fearful about gaining weight, right? Those feelings where you said, I can't. I know that's there. That's why you're doing this insanity. It's equal. If you look at it, you're like, that's how bad you felt in the moment you decided, I'm going to do the protocol because that's better.
And, in reality, like, I lost quite a bit of weight doing Jenny Craig, which is not healthy food necessarily. Like, it's not different than eating just normal food, or probably worse because it's all processed. But I think it's like you say, it's the it's the amount. Like I wasn't binging,
until it was over, until you got a grasp of reality. Again, everything you've done, you can see you've done the same exact pattern with everything. With everything. Same pattern. You got to be able to see that at some point there's an end, and that's when shit gets real. As an animal, shit gets real. You go into your food, and you'd rather gain to have that food in the moment. Because you just want to be you just want to be real and relax. And then in those moments.
able to, if I eat in moderation and don't like eat out of guilt and shame, if I
or fear of gaining, yes.
Then I shouldn't. I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really don't think that my set point is where I'm at now. Like.
So I understand what you just said. So what you would have to do, though, if what you're saying is true,
right.
Do you really need a diet to hit your set point? Okay, so I want you to use your own logic to think about, then why are you dieting? If you really wholeheartedly believe your set point is like at 130 or 135 or whatever it is, then why the fuck are you dieting? Because dieting actually is going to take it the opposite direction. Meaning you're going to end up with a set point at 140 the more you do this. Because that's how the body preserves its life. So it's going to, your set point. So if you really do believe that, why are you so why are you so fearful? So this is a good, go ahead.
I guess I just need to get over myself, and I need to trust, like you said in your book, I need to trust my body.
Yeah.
I need to trust that it knows better than me.
And it is going to, and I think I totally agree with you. If you get yourself and your crazy train out of the situation, your body is going to go to its natural set point on its own, without restriction, without this insanity. You're not going to need to restrict your carbs. So if it's a natural set point, should you be afraid of carbs?
No.
Correct. So what you're doing, you say that from your logic and intelligence. It's clearly not running the show. Because emotionally, you don't believe it, right? Emotionally, you don't believe the body is capable of its own system.
I think because, my body has been so out of control, up and down, so my whole life.
Your body hasn't been out of control. You've been in control. That's the problem.
Right, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I know. So you're the one that goes rabid, insecure, zealotry, control, to massive amounts of insane compensation, out of control, knowing you're going to go back into the radicalized super ultra control. Then you end up in this radical other side of the pendulum swing, which is, I need my food. And then you go back in, and so you've never actually allowed that pendulum to find a middle ground.
Well, and I think that plays like in quite a few areas of my life. Like the control thing, that's a huge issue. It's huge.
That's hard.
Yeah, like if I could let go of this control, like, because it's the same, like we went to this vacation rental, like I just wanted to go one more time before everyone messes it up. Like I had to go and put everything, there was like 2 people that stayed there before and I had to put everything back in its spot, and then I told my husband, I'm like, oh my God, it's just killing me inside to know that they're going to mess it all up. Like, and he's like, take the emotion out of it. It's an investment. I'm like, but I love them.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it's the same with my kids. Like I control everything, and I do too much for them because I it's like not doing them any good. But I like literally can't stop myself from doing it.
That comes from, and I don't want you to think that you're actually acting like a person does in survival mode. So this type of controllingness and perfectionism is a symptom of pretty severe survival. Like an animal that's not surviving well, that doesn't feel good in its home, that doesn't feel good in its environment, that doesn't feel like it has enough food, that doesn't feel like it can handle trial and error. Mm-hmm. Can you see why this controllingness would be so important for you to feel safe and comfortable?
Yeah, but it also causes like anxiety,
because all of that. You got it. And that's the downside, because the anxiety is actually what's underneath it all. So it doesn't cause anxiety. The anxiety is actually causing the controllingness.
Huh.
Yeah, you're just in it, so you can't see it. You know, when you're in something so close and you're just being kind of like controlled by it, you can't see why. This is why it's so confusing, because you don't know where it's coming from. You know you need to control. You know that controlling this feels good. You know that that's what you need to do, because that's what makes the anxiety go away. Right?
Yeah,
I know.
Exactly. Like everything is picked up in my head. Like I can't stand with stuff everywhere. Like oh my God.
It makes your skin crawl. You get like, it's like having withdrawals from your drug. So
oh my God. It's like, and like, you know, if you want at work, if you want anything organized, call Karen. You know, like I'm like, literally like everything. I mean, people used to mess with me on my desk. They'd go and like switch two things.
Oh, totally.
And I switch it. I just assume, I'm just like, you know, type A.
No, well, type A is not something you really want to be called. That's a miserable place to be, because you're in survival mode. That's a sign of someone who is energized, right? At least you're not in apathy. Apathy means that you've surrendered to nothing is worth it anymore. So that's where people do nothing. You're energized in your survival mode. So at least you're there. You have a degree of confidence, but it's holding you hostage. Everything is about getting rid of that feeling. Everything you do is to get rid of that feeling that's underneath it all. If people knew, they wouldn't be praising it, you're controlling this, or they wouldn't be like, type A, oh my God, you're so good at this. They would be like, oh, you have to do this much work just to feel neutral? You don't even feel great. You feel neutral. It's like slavery. And it's a horrible form of slavery, because it's the degree of work and effort and thoughts and calculations are on such a intense level that you probably need to drink just to get rid of it.
Well, instead of drink, I would eat. That was always,
well, and that's your one way to reward yourself from all of that. So that's something else that we have to look at, is like the underlying survival symptoms that you're carrying around, and how, you know, you might be using body image as just one defense mechanism. That might just be one way that you believe I can get rid of this anxiety, is if I'm thinner, I'll get rid of this anxiety. But then that freaking, you know, again, that takes in that first hierarchy of need. I think that we need to have that conversation. I know we talked about it last time, where I talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think we really need to hone in on that, because there clearly is a threat to your survival happening. We just need to figure out what it is. Obviously, your dieting is threatening it for sure, because your food is the most important survival need and also the most sensitive threat to survival mode. And so anytime someone diets, they're going to have these symptoms.
Yeah.
You know,
I know.
But it sounds to me like it's actually not the core. Like your eating issues and your body image issues might be secondary.
Right. Possibly. Because I've been like this controlling, like crazy organizational person for not when I was a kid, but like,
but maybe in high school.
Ever since probably college. You know, maybe late high school, for sure college, because that was like when I had my little dorm and I could put it exactly how I wanted. My side was perfect. My roommate side was a disaster. And
oh my God, I was the disaster side, just so you know.
I wish I didn't care. Like I wish.
Okay, well, let's go into why you care. So I understand that, because it's torture. This is not easy, right? You're going to need to be medicated. And who wants to medicate when you can go into the cause? But what do you think was the issue? Did you feel really insecure in college?
Oh, yeah. My whole life, even when I was a kid.
So did you go to college and have some fantasy about what you were going to do and how it was going to be? And
well, yes, and then like I just, something happened. a couple things happened that were devastating.
Like what?
And I don't know if I want this on tape, but I guess you don't have to post this one.
I'm taking notes on the time, and I'll delete it out. Okay, go ahead.
Well, when I was the summer before going to college, I was dating this guy. I was like 18. He was 25. He was awful. He smoked pot. I smoked pot like cigarettes, and I swear he was like dealing it. And I just should not have been in that situation. And I just was like in this wild mode. And anyway, my friend and I, we were at his friend's house, who I'm sure was a drug dealer. Like, it was this big, huge house in Huntington Harbor, and it was weird because, like, there was no furniture in the house. It was all